Is Rex Sikes the most interesting man in the world? He's in the running, in my book. He's a true Renaissance man, an actor, author, educator, master hypnotherapist, and a seemingly endless source of insight about the human condition. And lucky for us, he's this week's guest on the DesuckifyWork Podcast. We talked about how we can embrace our humanness more fully in the workplace to create the kind of culture where people thrive and make a difference. Some key takeaways? Play and experimentation are vital for learning, creativity, and breaking out of our limiting patterns. Collaboration and cooperation, rather than competition, lead to better outcomes in work and in life. And small incremental changes can lead to significant transformations over time. Rex encourages each of us to experiment and play in our work life and see where it takes us, and to have fun along the way. None of this works if we don't enjoy the experience. And good news, our guest next week will take us on a deeper dive into the world of play and how it can help us completely reimagine what it means to be an adult. For now, let's sit back and enjoy Rex's fascinating perspective on the world. Okay, Rex Sikes, welcome to the DesuckifyWork Podcast.
Well, thank you, TJ. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And before we go too deep into a lot of the good stuff you're doing in the world, can you just give us a quick background on who you are, what do you do for work, and a little bit about maybe how you came to be doing it?
Well, it's a great question. I'm Rex Sikes, obviously, that's my name. By trade, I'm an actor and a change agent. I work in the film business, but I also have been for 50 years doing both, but doing transformational work with everybody from librarians to top CEOs, executives, and very wealthy and exclusive people. I'm author of the book Life on Your Terms. I wrote the book really to be a manual, a blueprint about how you can live life on your terms and take back, anything that you've given up that's not working, that prevents you from doing what you want to be doing. I tell a little bit about my story in there, a slice of it, but it's not about me. It's about how you can make the change that you want to live life on your terms, create the life that you want. And there's some stories and examples of other people who have done that I've been fortunate to know or work with.
Awesome. I'm sure we will dive pretty deep into some of that. I've got a few other questions for you before we get too deep into the current work you're doing. Although I did have a quick thought there. You mentioned you work from like librarians to top CEOs and all that stuff. And, do you notice a difference between folks who are doing the kind of day-to-day on the front lines kind of work like a librarian and a CEO?
Well, that's a great question. And the answer is yes and no. People, after all, are people, no matter what their occupation, their station, or their wealth is.
Yeah.
However, mindset can be very, very different. You can either be part of the cog of the wheel figuring, oh, I'm a worker bee, so I don't really, amount to much. Or you could be somebody who goes, well, I'm the leader and I'm the top dog and I'm the... So it depends. There are people who have a very high station in life, are very humble, very open, very good, kind, generous, amazing people. And then there are those who are not.
Yeah.
And the same is true of anyone down the chain. But when it's all said and done, most people, other than even financial needs, but most people outside of that, their needs are very much similar. They want to be happy. They want to connect. They want to have love. They want to feel meaningful or have a purpose in their life. How they accomplish that, whether they accomplish that, is all pretty standard. I mean, I've done a lot of work with millionaires and billionaires. They've got anything and everything you could ever want in the world, and they're miserable and they're dissatisfied and they're unhappy because what they did was they worked and worked and worked and worked and sacrificed, sometimes losing their friends, their family, whatever. And now they've got everything and they find out that, wow, all these things I thought were going to make me happy or fulfill me doesn't. Sometimes it's the people who have nothing who are the happiest.
Yeah.
They're just happy and they don't have anything to hang that on.
Wow.
But between the two, and all of it's in some ways the same, and all of it's possible.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think I just think it's interesting for us to sometimes remember that we're all struggling for some of those basic things, right? Love, connection, some sense of being able to express ourselves in the world, all that good stuff. Yeah. So
Well,
for,
and as the saying goes, we all put our pants on, one leg at a time, or we all
yeah,
use the toilet, or we all, I mean, we're
yeah, yeah,
at the, at the end of it, at the end of the day, we were born alone and die alone and come into the world naked and go out that way kind of thing. And
yeah,
what we accomplish or accumulate during that time, I think the most meaningful thing is to have the kind of relationships you want with your family and your friends, to find that kind of meaningful work, whether you're doing work for charity or work for a company or your own,
yeah.
so that you feel productive and you feel valued, but then to add value to other people so that you're not living in isolation, because
Mm,
no human's an island. We're all in this together. And I think the biggest difficulty is those people who are so adamant that they want to compete and crush and destroy, all the other kind of competition so they can have a
yeah.
market share, whether that's in business or in sports or in,
Hmm.
arts or in religion or whatever. There's a mindset that is, you're either successful and you cooperate and collaborate, or there's a mindset where you don't. And
Yeah.
obviously I prefer the former.
Yeah. It's certainly unfortunate that many of us, and sometimes it's just for a period of our life where we can get caught up in that sense that like, if I accomplish this thing, I'm somehow worthwhile, even at the expense of all the good stuff we just talked about. Yeah.
Well, to piggyback on that, one of the things is it's all about experience. It's all about growing and learning and transforming yourself and or yourself with other people. And
Hmm.
most of us, we can't understand those things until we've fruitlessly, pursued something, only to find
Yeah.
out this is meaningless, to go, wow, that's not what it's about. I have an opportunity now, hopefully,
Hmm.
live a different life. You don't want to get to the end of your life and go, oh, I should have spent more time with my kids. I
Yeah.
had a better relationship with my significant other. You know,
Hmm.
I thought having that kind of car or home or whatever was going to be what it was. And, I'm dying and I don't have what good is the home, you
Yeah.
know, around me. So
Mm.
it all of it, our hardship, um, when we are the biggest jerks in the world, and
Hmm.
we are nice and incredible and everything's working out, all of it's part of the experience we have on the planet. So it's all
Yeah.
valuable, and if we can learn from it and provide meaning for it that helps
Mm.
us be better people and live more successfully, then it's all good.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with that. And I think, as you were talking, um, a question I often ask, it feels maybe pertinent right now. And for you personally, what role does work play in sort of the broader piece of your life?
I've never worked in my life, so it's hard to answer that question.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate. I guess I did, like, for $2 an hour, I swept
Yeah.
sidewalks when I was 11 years old or something like that. I've done some
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but I've owned my time all of my life. That doesn't
Mm.
mean I've always had money, but it means that I've been able to do what I want to do when I do, because I've always felt that I wanted to act. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be in movies. And when I had my own, I became a meditator and a person of devoted to personal development, really
Mm-hmm.
at the age of 6 years old. I asked my mom to read me books that we had in the house.
Mm.
The side story is I was raised Catholic, and when we go to mass, we had to go to mass every morning. And then on Sundays, I always was like, this guy's got some connection with somebody, with all these incense and robes and candles and genuflecting and sitting up and down. And it was all in Latin when I was a kid. So I had
Uh,
nothing going on. I'm like, I want what this guy has because he looks good. You know,
mm-hmm.
so she read from the Bible, from Think and Grow Rich, the Bhagavad Gita, Khalil
Mm-hmm.
Gibran, and other books that we had around the house. So I got exposed at a really early age. And by the time I was able to read, I was reading them on my own.
Mm.
When I was 20, in my 20s, I had a crisis, and which I write about in the book, but it led me to understand that I had a lot of head knowledge of stuff and I had some experience with it, but unless it's the practice, unless it's the habit,
Mm-hmm.
in the training business, we say things like, if the carpet's pulled out from under you and you fall flat, you fall to the level of your training or to the success that
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, you go to your default mode. So depending on
Mm-hmm.
how good or not good your default mode is you go back to your habits. In other words,
Yeah.
what I discovered was I needed to have better habits
Mm.
and started applying what I had known at that time. And then my life changed. And so I started doing programs and workshops. I had been teaching acting in Los Angeles. So I just brought the acting, I brought meditation, I brought self-help and improvement and what I had learned through this crisis and started doing like weekend workshops and then eventually corporate workshops and then traveling all around the world and getting,
Hmm.
NLP and whole brain learning and all the other stuff that I do. So,
Yeah.
but that's kind of how it started. And so I've never really worked a day in my life. I've been on, sorry, I'm going long on this, but
No.
I've been on movies that have been horrible, horrible, horrible experiences by,
Hmm.
by comparison. I mean, just the fact that you're in a movie, it should be like, what, you know.
Sure.
But my point is that they were painful. They were really, really painful. But what kept me going was I would go, I'm living the dream. I am
Mm.
doing exactly what I want. And it's not going the way I think it should be going, but I have an opportunity to do something I wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Mm.
I, through my life, have learned that hardship, is truly a blessing because
Mm.
it makes us reevaluate. It makes us look at things. I had a meeting this morning with a gentleman, great guy. And he said, as often others do, he said, when I was in high school, this teacher said, you're never going to amount to anything. He said, I'm going to prove you wrong. And he
Hmm.
accomplished everything as a result of that.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
and I'm like, wow, what a blessing. If that teacher hadn't said that, do you think you'd have accomplished as much? He goes, I don't know, probably
Yeah.
not. Because,
Hmm.
so our troubles, our problems, and when people go, I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke, that may be the very thing that catapults them in
Mm.
a whole nother area of experience in which
Yeah.
either they're wealthy or they're not. But that, some people go, they go, I'm broken. Oh, I don't need money. What I need
Yeah.
to do is learn how to live,
Hmm.
and wonderfully with what I have and be
Yeah.
grateful for. So
Hmm.
I think it'd be a transformation.
Mm. You mentioned the crisis in your life. Is that something you're open to talking about? What happened there?
Well, I could, or they could read about it. I mean, I
Even
was
just the top line.
I had injured my back skydiving.
Okay. Wow.
And I couldn't sleep, and I was madly in love with a girl, and she and me, and she didn't want me to go, and I went, and I got injured, and trying to hide it to her, I went to a doctor in Beverly Hills and said, "Yeah, I can't sleep. I'm in an incredible amount of pain. Is there anything?"
Mm.
He said, "Yeah, here, take this." Last thing I remember for months, he gave me a fatal combination of pills,
Jeez.
accidentally, which if it didn't kill me, I should have been in an irreversible coma. So they considered me when I got through all of this, a walking medical miracle.
Mm.
But I took them in his office and I left to go pick up my sister in Hollywood. And she said, you were a completely different person. You were driving erratically. You weren't yourself. And
Yeah.
I that way for months, and girl dumped me and my friends dumped me and I lost my career and people were like, what's going on? You're going crazy. And
Mm.
I thought I was going crazy. I didn't know. I didn't realize I was. So when I stopped taking the pills, I felt such shame and everything. I tried to kill myself. I jumped out of a two-story window. I
Mm.
couldn't successfully kill myself. I mean, that was how frustrated I was.
Hmm.
And then I started drinking and abusing drugs all over again
Yeah.
because I just felt so much shame. And
Hmm.
and I so at some point I decided, I can't live like this. I need to do something. And I locked myself in my apartment between 6 and 8 weeks. And I sat in my Easy Boy
Wow.
rock my chair. And I said, I'm not going to leave this until I can face the world. And so
Mm.
I did the meditation, I did the affirmations, I did the visualization, I did I did everything. And I would go, why did this happen to me? How could I be so stupid? What is it that, why did, the universe, God, whatever, how did this, and I just kept blaming myself and complaining and whining. And after about 3 weeks of that, like how long is it going to take me to get my friends back? I realized I don't want to know the answer to any of those questions. None of those are relevant. That was the past. It's gone. It's done. I can't do anything about it. What I
Mm.
want is how quickly can I get out of this room and get
Mm.
my life back and walk through the world confidently with feeling, whole and complete again. And
Yeah.
I shifted from what was wrong to what was possible. And in that moment, it was this epiphany. And I've been teaching that ever since. It's really,
Mm.
so I teach it this way. It's dog crap or diamonds.
Mm.
Your choice.
Yeah.
And most people are very, very content, sadly enough, to wallow around in dog crap.
Yeah.
Because that's what they know. That's the default mode. That's what they're
Yeah.
conditioned for. That's what the society conditions us to do. Be a good worker. Know your place. Don't get out of line. All that.
Hmm.
So they don't.
Yeah.
So, and often until something like that pulls the rug out from them and they go, I can't live this way. I have to do something different.
Wow.
And the bad part is some choose, as I tried, not to live anymore. And that's
Yeah.
just to me very sad and egregious, actually. I'm so lucky. I jumped out of this window, I landed on my head. Here I got a bottle of water. I came down along a spike that was sticking out next to this tree.
God.
And went down my back. They scratched my back, but didn't hit me in the center. And I'd
Jeez.
been dead. And I fell over, and my first thought was, I, I didn't even kill myself. I don't know if I could say it on the air, so I didn't say it. And I was like, and I ran around to do it again, and I had locked myself out of my apartment that I jumped out of, and I couldn't get back in. And people saw me, and they were like, "How did you get out of your apartment? You were in your apartment." And all I could think about was that I killed the cat that was in the top of the tree that I went through.
Oh,
So
jeez.
I killed this cat. I killed this cat. Of course, they think I'm nuts anyway.
Mm,
Well, the cat lived, and I lived, and I'm
mm.
and I'm to this day I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
It didn't end that way, and
Right.
so and what I didn't know then, when I made this leap, was things would get better if I just, you know. So
Hmm. Wow.
so it's you can't, or you ought not, you should stay hopeful and faithful and never succumb to the thinking that there's no way out, because there's a way out.
Hmm.
Haven't found it yet, or you're not around the people who can help provide it for you. So you need to be open. And so what I really teach in many ways is mental flexibility, so that you can, because we're surrounded by infinite possibilities and infinite opportunities and infinite resources, both outside of us and inside of us. And
Hmm.
yet, to look for them, or to, you know, and what most people do is they cycle through a few of the options that they know. This is
Yeah.
why Einstein said, I do a program on creativity, problem solving, and intuition. And
Hmm.
the quote, he said, the problem and the solution are at different levels. You can't solve the problem with the same thinking that created the problem. You have to go
Hmm.
elsewhere. And
Yeah.
and so true about people. It's kind of like if you're in a dark room and you don't know
Hmm.
where you are and there's no light, you don't run as fast as you can into the room, because you're going to trip over something or smack into the wall. So
Hmm.
you need to maybe feel your way through and kind of explore the options to find out, is there a window, is there a door, is there something that
Hmm.
I can do? And
Yeah.
for most people, that's what they need to do, is to somehow slow down the inner turmoil, the speed at which they're processing. And
Mm.
I've got all these options and opportunities, but I don't see them yet. So
Yeah.
how can I begin to see them and put that in the forefront of their brain, so that you focus more on diamonds than the dog crap, and then change is possible.
Yeah. I like that diamonds and dog.
Whether it's a person or a group, whether it's a
Yeah.
solo entrepreneur or an entrepreneur or people in the workplace, if you can understand, especially like in the workplace, I've got
Hmm.
all these people around me. I got all these resources. I got all these opportunities. I don't know who or what or when or where, might, but
Yeah.
be open, because you never know when an opportunity presents itself. Like the guy whose teacher said, "You're never going to amount to anything. You're going to be a
Mhm.
bum like the rest of your family."
Right.
That's one way of it presenting. Another person could say, "Hey, guess what? I've got a great opportunity for I'm going to show you how to do this." And
Hmm.
one person, if you say you're never going to match anything, the person goes, "Well, you're right," and they buckle. Or
Yeah.
that's not true. I'm going to prove you wrong. And if you go,
Mhm.
"Come here, I've got something really nice for you," you go, "I'm not interested." Or they go, "Oh, okay."
Mm.
That old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, is really, truly.
Well, that's a really interesting point, right? Because you talk about the sort of dog crap versus diamonds, but then there's even the ability to see the diamond and then uh, decide to go after it. And what is going on for many of us? Because I know I've experienced this too, like where it's there, but for some reason we just we can't we can't drink. We can't take that drink. What's going on sort of in our mental process that's not allowing that to happen?
Well, it's habitual patterns. In other words, there's this principle in computer programming, and a lot of people like, and we've used it. I've used it too. That the brain is like a computer, but it isn't. It isn't. It's more like a jungle. It's a living, thriving, resilient
Mhm.
organism that we now, more than ever. When I began my work, it was considered a jar that got filled, and then you just kind of lost the stuff that's in the jar.
Mhm.
Now we know that it grows, and the more you use it, the more it grows, and the less you use it, the more it might wither.
Mhm.
Hypertrophy. Um, the thing to do is to understand that there's this habitual programming that we've grown up with. It's our cultural conditioning from our family, friends, peers, media, and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's going to run reliably. And this process in computer programming is garbage in, garbage out, meaning GIGO or GIGO.
Yeah.
That if you write bad programming, the results you're going to get are going to be faulty results. So if a computer program writes a line of code that's got errors in it, then they're not going to get the intended results that they want.
Yeah.
You can liken that to our thinking, but you can also liken it to if you always do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
But what we do, we go down the same habitual paths of thinking and don't get out of that thinking box very often. It's if you go the same way to work, you never see anything new. You don't know what else is there. So if you always just drove down the same road, or if every day you ate the same meal, you wouldn't know what else is available to you. But that's how a lot of people live.
Yeah.
Maybe not as crisp as that example, but it's the habits that cause the problems because they're and here's this interesting thing. Your brain, my brain, is designed to do two things. Keep you alive, so look out for problems and dangers. Keep you alive so that you survive, so that you perpetuate the race, the human race. Meaning it wants you to thrive, so it keeps you alive so you can have sex, so you can procreate.
Yeah.
That's the good news. You can have sex if you like that. That's right. And in doing that, it's keeping you consistent. You don't wake up TJ one day and Bob the next day and Susan the next day, and you don't say I like pizza today, but tomorrow I don't eat anything but Asian. It keeps you consistent. That's what our habits are. So whether you're chewing your hair or biting your nails or thinking negatively or thinking positively and exercising every day and eating right, those are just habits that we have. And once we have them, the brain goes, okay, this is what you do. So what happens for a lot of people is, for example, they start smoking or drinking or doing something. And let's put aside the notion that there's addictions or there's chemical dependency or any of that stuff and just go with, you're smoking. Biting your nails is another example. You say, well, there are brain chemicals that come from that. Okay, great. That is the point. But you have this habit that you don't want. You want to do something different. So people go, I don't want to smoke. 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 I don't want to eat this. I don't want to eat. And the brain can't process what you don't want because all the brain knows is what you do. This is why once you've learned to sit on a chair, you don't have to learn to sit on chairs over and over and over again.
Right.
The brain generalizes it. And when I say this, there's no person in your head going, I'm a smoker, I'm a not smoker. This is chemical, electrical process. Point is, you've learned this habit. Now you go, I'm going to change it. Well, the subconscious mind, this aspect of it, that's responsible, our neural wiring, that's habitual and everything else, that beats our heart, that blinks our face, that wets our mouth or has us perspire. That's running the show, and it's trillions of times more powerful than this decision, I'm going to change. So you go, I'm not going to smoke, and the brain kind of goes, oh, yes, you are. And it's like, why? Because that's what you do. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just that's what you've learned to do. So you're doing that because when you try to change it, now it perceives it as a threat, like a survival thing, like you're changing. Oh my gosh, you're going to die, even though you won't.
Right.
But that's kind of the perception thing. So when people want to change and they encounter, oh God, I'm terrified, I'm scared, I don't know if I can do it. That's the brain trying to keep them the same. But it's a beautiful opportunity at that moment if you realize it. It means that you're there and you're challenging the status quo of your own habit set. And so it's throwing the stuff up against you to keep you from changing. And now you go, oh, well, let's understand that. Let's realize that this is meant to keep me the same. But there are other ways I can change differently. So you want to practice the new behaviors or the new thoughts or the new feelings or the new words, those the habit. So overcoming something is like practicing doing anything but smoking. Anything but putting your fingernails in your mouth, practicing anything but using foul language or whatever it is. Practice. Because if I say, you have the example, don't think of a blue elephant kind of thing. You go, well, that's too late. You already do. And the brain pours the vacuum. So if you go, I don't want to smoke, and you stop smoking, it's kind of like, well, now what?
Right.
So if you don't replace it with something, that you enjoy more or do more, then you just usually go back to it. So it's why everybody rushes to the gym on January 1st, and on the 3rd they're back in their, on their sofa eating donuts,
Yeah.
because that's what they're used to. That's what they're conditioned to do. That's
Yeah.
what they've been doing all along. It
Mm.
can be changed. I mean, that's what the book is all about. That's what my work is all about. It can be changed, but
Yeah.
you understand it's not your fault, but
Hmm.
it is your opportunity. And I'm stop talking, TJ. But the coolest thing is that Helen Keller, who couldn't see and couldn't hear, said, "When one door closes, you have to be able to see the other one that opens."
Mm. Wow.
And she couldn't see, but I mean, the
Yeah.
point being is that there's opportunity around you, but if you're blind to it, it's just as if you never had it, and that's
Yeah.
what people face. They don't realize there's good all around them.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, in the world of work, what I notice, and this is like, you spend like 20 minutes on LinkedIn, people are suffering, people
Yeah.
are struggling, people are frustrated. And I think most people are experiencing exactly what you just said, which is they can't see these other possibilities. They're kind of in their loop, and they're just doing the habitual thing of, this is how I show up to work. This is what I do. This is what it feels like. And then I go back and I repeat that pattern. So that seems to be the reality that people are experiencing. How, if I'm that person who intellectually goes, I know work shouldn't be like this. I know I shouldn't hate it, or I shouldn't be in this toxic environment, or I shouldn't be doing something that doesn't really connect to like the true me. But yet here I am, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and I don't know how to change. What are some steps that can begin to allow them to see the other opportunities and then start to move towards them?
Excuse me, that's an excellent question, TJ. And is one that people face all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody described this to me in terms of cataract surgery. When people get older and they need cataracts, they say what
Yeah.
typically happens is that the lenses in the eye begin to obscure the vision. And it
Mm-hmm.
typically happens so slowly people don't notice that they're losing their vision
Okay.
until it becomes noticeable. And then they notice it and then they go, "There's a problem. And I don't know what the problem is." And they go to a doctor and the doctor says, "Well, either you need glasses," or they go, "Oh, it's cataracts. You need to have your cataract."
Mm-hmm.
To one guy, he said, "You will have no idea how blue the sky is until you have your cataracts removed."
Mm.
Because what's happened is they go gray or brown or whatever, but it's cutting out the light that you receive. It's cutting out the colors that you see.
Mm.
And so when people have cataract surgery, they oftentimes go, "Oh my gosh, oh, this is so cool. Not only can I see, but I see things I didn't know I didn't see. I used to
Wow.
see a sky that was kind of gray blue. Now I see the sky that's blue. So
Mm-hmm.
they wake up to what they at one time were able to see, but had slowly gotten progressively less and less. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and you can liken that to a habit or being, allowing yourself to be self-defeated or to getting frustrated or any of those things that little
Mm-hmm.
by little, if you don't take an active role in determining the course of your life, you will always be as Napoleon Hill would say, be like a cork drifting in the water. So I liken it to this. You have one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat, and you want to go somewhere, and you'll never go anywhere as long as you go back and forth between the dock and the. So you either have to take your foot out of the boat and say, "Okay, I'm going to stay on the dock,"
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to get in the boat and go to where I wanted to get to.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't just go back and forth, and a lot of people get into that. I don't know. I can't do. Dog crap or diamonds. You got to make a choice. There's no such thing as a. Here's the one thing that I've learned in my entire life. I have never made a bad decision in my entire life.
Mm.
I've made decisions.
Right.
Those decisions didn't lead to the outcomes I wanted. I've lost tons of money. I've lost friends. I've lost things. In some ways, I've destroyed never been a bad decision. It's just been a decision that I made based on the information or what I knew at the time.
Yeah.
And maybe had I known more or decided differently, it'd be different.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a bad decision. If you understand where I'm coming from, it was just a decision.
Mm.
If you make a decision you don't like and you don't get the outcomes, you need to make a different decision.
Mm-hmm.
And as Hill would say in Think and Grow Rich or his other works, the hardest thing for people to do is get accurate information because they're listening to opinions, their own, which is BS. I mean, like the saying, everybody has a certain hole,
Yeah.
opinions related, right? So you're either listening to your own opinion, you're listening to your family's opinion, you're listening to your neighbor's opinion, you're listening to the opinions from media or politicians, or really, you're steeped in, and so doing the legwork to get accurate information, crucial for us, especially if we're working with other people. So the question becomes is, if you're in a place and you go, it's a toxic environment. Well, first off, if you're calling it a toxic environment and you're remaining there, you have a choice. Either stop calling it a toxic environment and see what you can do to improve your position or the environment that you're in. You may have some say so, you may have not, right? Or leave it.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes is, what are your alternatives if you leave it? I mean, and I get that people feel stuck because the alternatives they're going is, I'm on the dock, I'm on the boat, I'm on the dock. Those are the only two things they see. So they don't have any choice. I either stay or I either go. I would say, well, what if there are other choices you're not yet considering about what you do when you stay or what you do when you go? And that's what people have to develop, the flexibility to be able to entertain that the solution isn't where the problem is. And a lot of people think that the solution to their problem is going to save them when the solution to their problem is their problem, because they don't see anything past that.
Wow.
They keep saying, if this were the case, then my life would be different, not understanding that their life could be different, even if that isn't the case.
Wow. You mentioned the word decisions in there, which I thought was interesting for a couple of reasons. One, a previous guest a few weeks back, Julie Junglewala, she's an executive coach and does some other work. She had done a lot of research around what sort of mindsets and behaviors tended to show up in people who have sort of lived a more thriving life. And what she noticed was that they follow their curiosity, they run experiments, and then they make decisions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are pretty good at the first one, meaning like we can kind of imagine a better life. We can, maybe not go deep into it, but the running experiments and then making decisions, even knowing that a good percentage of those decisions will quote unquote be bad ones, meaning they won't immediately solve the problem in the way we think they should be solved. Right. That it's that behavior that creates the learning and creates the ability to eventually find our way to that thing. And that stuck on the dock versus the boat thing. It's like just simply making the choice is something. But so many of us actually feel more comfortable with one foot on and one foot off.
Because, habit.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about in all of this, and you even talk about in your book, it's, life on your terms, create the life you want. It often feels like life is just happening. Right. So what needs to happen, or what do we need to do, maybe is the better way of phrasing this, so that we shift into that mindset where creating our life is actually a thing we can do versus sort of a phrase that almost sounds like a crazy person said it, because I think that's what a lot of people might think.
Yeah, they all go, oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Easy for you to say. And I go, well, it's easier done than to think about it, really.
Right.
If you do it, you'll be fine. But if you think about it, you may never do it. Excuse me for the cough, but
okay.
But think about this for a second. What stops most people? I've asked this question for now almost 50 years, if not longer. A thought.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thought. It's a mental packet of energy. Oh, I can't do that. I can't afford it. I don't have the time. People won't like me. I'm afraid. I'm an introvert. It's a thought that stops most people. A thought. You're not by chance. You're not tied to a chair. Nobody's holding you down except that thought. And what do you need to do? Change your thought. Now, I got involved in this work through the crisis and everything, but what I discovered back in the 70s was the placebo effect. There was a study done by Travis Air Force Base on cancer patients. I write about it in the book, but and what they determined was that the attitude toward the treatment was a better predictor for the successful outcome than anything else.
Wow.
Attitude toward the treatment, whether you thought the treatment would be successful or not, was the predictor for success or not. And that led me to wonder about this a lot. Like, in other words, so if I think it's going to help, it's going to help. And if I think it's not, so there's a placebo effect, nocebo effect. Back in the 70s, there's a handful of studies. Now there's something like 40,000 studies.
Wow.
But what it says is that the way we think about things, what we believe is the case, typically is the case. And people say, well, then if I believe I can fly, I can fly. And you go, well, yeah, but if you're going to try that, why don't you try flying up off the curb rather than off the roof? I mean, don't test the elements, because we're not talking about circumventing the physical laws of the universe. We're talking, being a being on the planet, moving through the planet, being able to do things.
Yeah.
So if and Henry Ford said it best. He said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct.
Yeah.
But he also did something that was really, really powerful. And that was, I never let what I cannot do prevent me from doing what I can. So if I know all the reasons why I can't do something and I don't do it, that's preventing myself from being able to do it. If I go, I want to do it, but I don't have the money, that's preventing me from doing it. It's just thought. So he said, I never let myself. So consider experimenting and what we were talking about. The Wright brothers, for example, when they decided we're going to make a heavier than air aircraft, didn't know how to fly.
Yeah.
Never done. They were bicycle mechanics. I mean, they didn't. But they decided to experiment with aircraft and flight, and they kept failing and failing and failing. And their own dad said, "You guys are idiots. The neighbors think you're crazy. Give it up. You're embarrassing us. Come on, stop." The press didn't show up. I mean, there are photos apparently of Napoleon Hill actually driving press to Kitty Hawk in order to see it, because they thought, oh, these guys are chokers.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. All the while that they were attempting to fly, they were failing, which we call failure. And I'm fond of the saying that there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. So they were taking the failure known as feedback, and they were making adjustments, and they were trying it again.
Yeah.
And they'd make another adjustment. They trail, and what were they doing? They were experimenting. They didn't know. They didn't know if it would work. They were just trying stuff. They were experimenting. In some experiments, you get some results and you don't like them, or they don't work out the way you think they do. And others, they do.
Yeah.
So they didn't know how to fly until after they flew. Once they flew, they could improve on it.
Yeah.
Because whoa, we did it. We had 11 seconds. We flew. No, we've done it. So So for most people, the key is to go back and become children again. Because as children, playing hopscotch and with sand and sticks and using your imagination, not the ones on the phones today and the whole thing like that, but back when you and I were littler, you and I learn more, and even kids today, but you learn more through play than you do sitting in a classroom being told what to learn and told you that you're wrong and getting, they don't go, you got 2 right out of 100. That is fantastic. They go, you got 98 wrong, you idiot. What is wrong with you? So we grow up, being afraid to learn, being afraid to not be correct, being afraid to speak out, but as a kid, playing with other kids, if you weren't bullied, but playing with other kids, you learned everything. You learned everything. And if you can recapture that joy and understand that you are just a big kid, have fun, then you can begin to do things that you haven't done in a long time. For example, most adults like you and I are sitting, or we're standing, or we're lying on a bed, but we don't do somersaults. We don't do cartwheels anymore. Unless yoga or something, you're not upside down, or unless you do, back. So, but being upside down takes all the cerebral fluid and changes the direction to gravity. It massages the vestibular system in the inner ear. It helps you with orientation to space, and it actually helps you grow new neural pathways. So yoga, doing somersault. In my programs, I have little old ladies and men rolling down hills in the right kind of weather. Yeah, because they haven't done it since they were children.
Yeah.
If we have a dominant hand, a dominant eye, a dominant foot. Those are habits. You can learn to be ambidextrous if you want, but you could write with the other hand. You can eat with the other hand. You can shave with the other hand, whatever body parts you shave, but do it carefully. You can use, one eye versus the other. You can kick the ball with the other foot. Soccer players know how to use both. So you can develop any skill or talent you want. Go to work a different way, eat different foods, play different games. Add what I add novelty to your life. Because if you always do what you always do, you always get what you always got. And people say, well, I don't like that food, or I don't do that, or that's not me, and in my book, I say, if I were to dress you up in Elvis Presley's white jumpsuit with the cape and the sequins, it would seem really strange at first. If you didn't like that, you go, well, this isn't me. Wear it long enough and you go, oh, I'm cool. Because we all get accustomed to things. If we're exposed to things. They even say that if you want to expose your child to eat new foods, they have to eat the food at least a dozen or more times for them to experience the taste. They'll go, I don't like that. I only just try it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Just try it. And after about a dozen or so tries, they actually said 11, I think was the number. They say the more that you experience it, the less foreign it is, the more it, and the reason why people don't change is because they're in their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
What hardship do? It pulls the walls of your comfort zone apart, and you go, oh.
Yeah.
So if you learn how to pull the walls of your comfort zone apart and expand it a little bit by doing things, trying different foods, going different ways, doing different things with your body, exposing yourself mentally to different books or music or things you don't do, you become what you were as a child, and that is, and what you still are, is a learning machine. And I went and said, you don't need to sit down and learn how to, or you don't need to sit on new chairs or open doors or, figure out how to use a fork or implements once you do, unless you have neurological damage or a stroke or something like that, where you do need to relearn.
Yeah.
You're wired for it. That's such incredible news. Because what it tells you is you've learned to have all these wonderful things that you can do, but it means you also learn to have the problems that you have, and you learn to have the limitations that you have. And the only keeping them there is the fact that you learned them, and your brain tries to keep you consistent. But if you want to change them, same way if you and I want Arnold Schwarzenegger's physique tomorrow, we ain't going to have it tomorrow.
No.
But if we eat right, sleep right, do the right kind of exercise for long enough, we won't be, I'm not his size, and I'm not his bone structure. I won't have that, but I can maximize my physique. You can maximize your physique by implementing those things. And yet most people want the hack. They want the quick fix. They want the microwave version. They want, don't give me the Cliff Notes. I don't want to read the book. I don't want to listen to it. Just give me the speed dial version. Yeah. It was robbing us of being smart and being wise, having the experience, enjoying life, because we're it's cost and convenience and speed. And instead of going, hey, this is an incredible sit down meal. It took me 8 hours to, prep, and then it took me 15 hours to cook. These people who bury, those things like pig roast or whatever, they bury it underground for days, something, and then they come out and go, try this. Yeah. Well, sometimes we have to savor the stuff and not just try and rush through it.
So much of what you're talking about here, the word mindset keeps popping up, and I know you mentioned it. Sure. And because I think, there's a certain mindset shift that needs to happen, or I need to provoke, I guess maybe is a different way of looking at it. But like you talked about eating the food 11 times before you're finally like getting acclimated to the taste. And I think for many of us, the willingness to try something different might be like, okay, we're open to it. But 2, 3, 4 times, and it's like, oh, that doesn't feel good. I'm going back. What mindset do we need to embody that kind of convinces us or allows us to continue with like, no, I'm going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And
that's it's another great question, TJ. And it's cultural, especially in our culture. There's God, what is it? God, country, and apple pie, or whatever the thing is, truth, justice, the American way, 3 straight. You're out, first base, second base, third base, and you're home. Yeah. We have this try again mentality. First, you don't succeed. How many more times do you try? Twice. And then what do you do? So we are pretty much conditioned to not do it very much, not to stay with it. This is why Hill said only 2 out of 100 people are ever going to change their lives deliberately and intentionally, because most of them will always succumb to their comfort zones and they will drift the rest of their lives. So one of the ways to start to do that is, and going back to Ford's quote about, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct. And if you look into the placebo studies, what it tells you is if you expect a certain outcome or believe a certain outcome, it doesn't guarantee it, but it's a whole lot more likely that you'll have that outcome, especially if you act in ways towards that. Yeah. But the important thing with Hill was you're not to work harder, you're to think smarter, you're to have the right mindset. Then from the right mindset come the right behaviors. That's why I say I've never made a bad decision. I'm a day in my life. Yeah. I enjoy, I own my time. I've not always had money, or I've made money and I've lost money. I mean, things have been what other people might say good or bad. For me, it's like, it's part of being alive. And, part of being alive is an adventure. And in an adventure, if you go on an adventure in Disneyland, they kind of make it scary sometimes and happy sometimes and smooth sometimes. rough sometimes and you get splashed sometimes. Whatever. I mean, why, if you're going to go on an Amazon adventure, you got to expect, if your boat breaks down and you got to push it like the African Queen movie, you got to go, well, that's part of the adventure.
Yeah.
It's like, but understand you also co-create it by your attitude and your mindset. So if you go, I can't do that, you've done. No, I won't do that. It's done. I'm never going to do that. You're done.
Yeah.
If you go, I don't know how to do it, maybe you're done. But if you go, I don't know how to do it, or at least that's what I would have said, but I could learn how to do it. If I wanted to do it, I could learn how to do it. I can learn how to do it. If I can learn how to do it, then it becomes possible. It's got to become plausible, and then from plausible to possible. So if it's possible, you're never going to do it. But if it's possible for someone, like I can't do it, but they could do it. Well, maybe if they could do it, maybe I could do it. In other words, you have to be able to start to think outside of your traditional thing. So if I could possibly begin to do it, then will I do it? And if I will do it, then maybe I can make some changes. So if I were to practice this and I were to give myself 30 days, 60 days, 90 days or more, what might I reasonably expect? And if you go, everything will change in the first week, you're probably going to be disappointed. Now, sometimes there's beginner's luck. Somebody goes out, they hit a hole in one the very first time they've ever used a golf club. And then the next day they're going, what happened?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to expect this kind of learning curve, this kind of plateauing as you go through this. So in some ways, there's a couple steps forward, a little way back, and a couple steps forward, and a little way back. But if you took 3 steps forward, 1 step back, and you kept doing that, you're going to get further than if you don't take any steps. So don't worry about backsliding. Don't think about failing. Think about what you can accomplish. That's the mindset thing, because people go, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, and the brain can't figure that out. If you go, I don't want to fail, what is it? So here's a little thing. I teach this in one of my programs. If I say, hey, TJ, you want to go to dinner with me? And you go, I'd love to, but I can't afford it. What's the last thing in your head?
That I can't afford it.
Can't afford it. So, people always say, get rid of the word but. You want to use but where it's appropriate. So you say, oh, you can't afford it, but you'd like to go to dinner.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, I'd like to go, but I can't. And I go, well, you can't afford it, but you'd really like to go. So let's figure out how we can make that happen. You understand what I'm saying? It's a way of just, giving you a next step out of, I can't do it. And that's where most people stop. They just stop with, oh, I can't do it. And then you go, well, they have 50 reasons. Well, I have this bill and that bill and this thing and then that and that, and I can't do it. Instead of going, oh, well, what are all the reasons? Muhammad Ali said, I hate training. But if I want to be the greatest, which he became, right? Then I have to train. So and I get up and I go out in the rain and I go out in the cold and I get off and I'm not sitting on the couch eating donuts. Because this is most important to me.
Yeah.
And so if you have something that's really important to you and you're willing to explore other options, if you don't know how, you can learn to know how. You can learn. Can't learn to know how, you can find somebody that does know how, and you can hire them. And if you can't hire them, then you have to find other ways of doing it. But if you just thought that I'm not able to do this, it's impossible, then that's where you stop.
Yeah. I think that flipping the sentence structure thing is a really neat thing. I mean, just like saying, typically you'd say like, I want to be a successful writer, but I don't think I have the talent or whatever.
Right.
And if you just flip it and go, I don't think I have writing talent, but I want to be a successful writer, your brain starts seeing that as a direction to move towards, as opposed to being stuck in the wall of I'm not a good writer.
Exactly. Dog crap or diamonds. You just do it. So you're aiming in a direction that the brain can go in. So let's explore how we can make you a successful writer. What do you need to do? You know what I do? I write a blog. I've written a blog every day for something like 15 years, daily blog.
Yeah.
Every single day. I've never missed a day. Now, if I'm in the desert and I have no internet, I write, if I'm there for a week, I write 2 weeks worth of blogs. And then hopefully that they drip out, through the technology. And to my knowledge, I don't think I may have missed one that way or something, but I don't know if I've even missed one of those.
Yeah.
But I've written, and why do I write it? And I've oftentimes said, yeah, I'd like to go to weekly or maybe monthly or just stop this thing. But I go, I have made a promise that I would do a daily blog, and I just don't want to stop to disappoint people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in all likelihood, I will. I mean, I've got
Right.
thousands, I mean, more than 4 or 5,000, 6,000 articles that, I
Mm-hmm.
can, but I wanted to do it to write because
Mm-hmm.
I would write more because the hardest thing I had was editing myself. I go, I talk extemporaneously. I go, okay, now what's not important? What can I cut out? And that
Mm-hmm.
gets very hard. But
Yeah.
if I have to do a blog and I do the same thing, then I go, well, how do I edit?
Mm-hmm.
So the practice of doing that every day, even though I've been publishing it, the practice of doing that every day is a way to get somebody, if they want to be a writer,
Mm-hmm.
write.
Yeah.
What does the writer do? They face a blank page. They go, well, I have writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, is like, what do you think? You just, free flowing ideas everywhere. Just start writing. Just write anything. If
Mm-hmm.
if you don't, uh, so consider this for a second. Nowadays, and it's scary. Nowadays, they want the tablets in school.
Mm-hmm.
When we grew up writing cursive,
Mm-hmm.
we first started with
Yep.
and then we went to cursive, and we had to do it within lines, and we had to do, and we did it repeatedly. We went A. If
Mm-hmm.
they type, they did A, J.
Yeah.
But you did it, and you learned your ABCs through song for most part in our
Mm-hmm.
country.
Yep.
But it was the repetition that built the habit. Now, today, if you type, for example, on your computer,
Mm-hmm.
instead of what they found was when you write, you don't ever write the same way twice.
Mm-hmm.
Got habits and ranges that you do. I mean, you don't necessarily go way outside of it, but
Right.
it's like being a violinist. The finer muscle movements and what it takes to write and eye coordinate actually massages the brain. You're actually giving yourself a brain workout when you handwrite. This
Hmm.
is why CEOs, if you see them, they're carrying around legal pads and they still write or print. They're not
Mm-hmm.
using their iPads or their whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Still taking handwritten notes because there's real people who are schooled in the arts of success understand this.
Yeah.
If you type, you're only making 8 repetitive movements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've narrowed it down by that. If you're using an iPad, the text, you're using 2.
Right.
So when they say we're getting dumber, we are. But when you learn to write, and I mean, think about it. You don't need we. I don't have a. I don't. I used to have every phone number and every address in my head. I didn't
Yeah.
use that, and now they're in my phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
GPS takes you wherever you want to go. You don't have to remember address. You just got to pump it in the GPS. You don't even have to look on a map or figure it out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're relying more on technology and less on ourselves, so we are getting dumber in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And great that we have technology to assist us, but even now the technology might be smarter than us, which
Mm-hmm.
is. But the process of writing was you learn to write through a habit of writing.
Yeah.
You didn't do it overnight, and you learned to do that. But when you were doing it as a kid, you didn't know that that would be the basis for signing checks later on,
Mm-hmm.
being able to read emails or letters or contracts or books or anything. You can't not read. You drive down the street, you see a billboard, you've
Yeah.
read it. I mean, you can't. You look at my book, I think you've read the title. If you know how to read, you read it. So
Mm-hmm.
your brain, and your brain has this ability. And what we need to do is learn how to emphasize these skills and enhance these skills so that we continue to use them and
Mm-hmm.
to do what we do, so that instead of being stuck by the thought or stopping at the thought, we learn to reverse it and say, well, yeah, I would have said this, but now I say that, or I
Mm-hmm.
was here, but now I want to do this. It
Yeah.
has to do not only with what we say, but how we feel and what we're imagining in our mind. And if you
Mm.
can't imagine another possibility, then you're left with the one that you
Yeah.
have. And if that's not an option for you, then what do you do? So teaching people to be creative, to figure out how to get out of their own way, to
Mm-hmm.
be more intuitive and trust themselves, and to make decisions. And if they didn't make the right one, make another decision and figure out,
Mm-hmm.
here is what I do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's what life on your terms is about. And so I've been doing this for 50 years, and it's just learning mental agility and resilience to live a wonderful life, the kind that you want, instead of a problem-filled life.
Yeah.
And that said, doesn't mean I don't have problems,
Right.
but I'll conclude my moment here with Pollyanna's been dissed more than anybody. Oh, rosy tinted glasses, Pollyanna, toxic optimism,
Yeah.
toxic positivity, toxic optimism. I mean, how could that be a bad thing? Well,
Hmm.
because it's unreal. It wasn't that Pollyanna was unreal. What Pollyanna was doing was looking for the good in situations that most people couldn't see.
Mm.
And then reframing the situation, saying, this is really a learning opportunity. This is really an opportunity for you to explore something you didn't know. Oh, isn't that marvelous, Mrs. So-and-so? You actually are, in other words, it was just finding the good or the silver lining that most people will miss because they're focused on the dark clouds.
Yeah.
If
Mm.
you do that, it doesn't mean you don't have problems. It doesn't mean that you don't work by the definitions we have, but it means you don't treat them as that.
Yeah. Well, it feels like it suddenly, I mean, that creates the mindset that allows you to move. Honestly, I mean, that's it, right? We're stuck. So many of us feel stuck because we're surrounded by the cloud, and the silver lining is simply blind to us. And so,
Right.
creating the habit of looking for the learning opportunity, the growth opportunity, the unexpected person in our life who might actually be a really interesting partner to connect with on something, like trying to find that repeatedly gives us many more, to go back to Helen Keller, many more other doors to pursue, right?
Beautifully said. And another thing is, what does the word stuck imply? And you said it, it's no movement. And if there's no movement, what does it tell you need to do to not be stuck? Move. So where
Yeah.
do you anywhere else?
Yeah.
Any but
Hmm.
here's something that is important. If you're stuck in the snow or the mud and you just put your pedal down in the car, your
Hmm.
tires spin and you can get nowhere.
Right.
You're busy, but you're not productive.
Mm.
So it's not about working harder and adding more stress and more, this to try and get out. It's
Right.
what's needed here for me to make the kind of contact I need to make with the surface that I'm on in order for me to move forward or backward.
Mm.
Same thing is true, in our everyday. Where do I need to go? What do I need to think? What resources do I have either inside me or around me? For example, right now, the solution to any problem you or I have, somebody has. Someone has
Hmm.
the time, the energy, the wherewithal, the knowledge, whatever it is,
Yeah.
somewhere. So the question isn't, can I do it or not? The question is, how can I connect with the people who I can help and they can help me overcome whatever it is I need to overcome in order to be able to do what I want to be able to do? How do I
Mm.
connect up? How do I,
Yeah.
as opposed to going, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's always interesting to me when you say some of this stuff, like it, I go, well, yeah, of course. But yet our brains, to your earlier point, like, are so good at keeping us, um, consistent, that we do need to find ways to make these little mindset shifts, to change our thoughts. And I want to come back to this hypothetical person who's maybe stuck at work and wants to maybe try something different. They've been in it for 10 years, and they read your book or they come and talk to you. What are, what's the first thing or two things that they're going to experience that starts to move them towards where they're trying to get to?
Well, the book is, like I said, it's a blueprint. There's lots of methods, practices, principles, exercises that you can do. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I encourage you to do them,
Yeah.
and I talk a lot about Maxwell Maltz. I think the first thing to do is begin to create a new image of yourself, somebody who can do what it is that you want to do. Because if you don't
Mhm.
think you can do it, or you don't think you will do it, you're never going to actually do it.
Yeah.
We talk about manifesting and the law of attraction. It's not, what do I want? Well, if you want something, it implies that you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't want it. If you
Right.
had it, you wouldn't need it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
So the people are always like, well, I want it, I want it, I want it. And this isn't working for me. And that's the point. You're creating more wanting. So how do you get it? My rule, first off, is you have to go first. If you want someone to pay attention to you, how do you get their attention? You pay attention to them.
Mm.
If you want someone to listen, you listen to them.
Mm.
If you want, people don't want to buy, they want to be sold, but they want to buy things. So what is it that they are trying to accomplish? What are their problems that you can solve, or what are the things that you can add value to? If you do that to them, then they're likely to buy from you. It doesn't guarantee that every sale, but
Mm-hmm.
point I'm making is that you need to go first. So the first rule of business is to get your mindset right. To
Mm,
start, how do I begin to think differently in a way that's productive? Well, and I show you how to do that in the book.
mm-hmm,
There are things that, I mean, there are things that we all know, like you can do a pro and con list.
mm-hmm.
Here's the pros, here's the cons of staying in there.
Yeah.
And you could do a I mean, and this is just kind of an aside to it, but what do I believe about it? What do I think is going to happen if I do this? The idea that your brain keeps you consistent is a good thing, and yet
Mm-hmm.
psychology calls it self-sabotage.
Mm,
So if you're going, well, I'd like to do it, but I'm sabotaging myself, first kind of slap yourself up and go, no, you're not. You're
right.
doing what you know to do.
Yeah.
So thankful that you work perfectly well to do something that you don't want to do.
Mm,
I mean, and
yeah.
now figure out what you need to do in order to learn how to do what you want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it starts with what do I want here? So you can do what they, in NLP, we called them well-formed outcomes. They later became SMART goals,
Mm,
specified. It's got to be, something you can initiate, maintain. It's got to be, achievable and that kind of stuff. So you can do those kind of things where you could say, all right, so I want to figure out a way out of this business. What would be a way to do it? Or I want to find out, should I stay or go? What is it that I want? You first
mm-hmm.
have to decide what you want. Because if you go, I really don't want to stay here, why would you spend all your time trying to figure out how to make it better?
Mm-hmm.
But if you go, I really want to stay here, I really like it. Now, how do you improve your situation?
Mm,
And there's different ways to do that. You can say, well, I like where I'm at, but I don't like my environment, and if I could be in a different office or a different workspace or a different town, that's something. If I don't like certain behaviors that I have to do or the behaviors of others, I don't want to be around them, or I need
mm-hmm.
to learn skills that I haven't used before. I'd really like to be able to maximize myself in this way, or, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what are my beliefs and values about this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Do I see this as an opportunity, or is this going to like just lead me down a road and I'm going to get stuck?
Mm-hmm.
The key is to develop thinking in different ways about your situation so that you can begin to find those doors that Helen Keller talked about
Mm-hmm.
by going, what is here? I can't, because it's a hypothetical, I can't really say you should do this.
Yeah.
If I do, somebody say, oh, well, I do that. And then they go, well, it didn't work. I go, well, it wasn't meant to work. It was a hypothetical. And I don't know what your situation is.
Right.
But if you learn that you can apply it, it's like I can't do your push-ups for you,
Mm,
but
yeah.
I can show you how to do a push-up, or I can
Right.
tell you push-ups. So
Mm,
start with what is it that I want and who am I?
yeah.
And am I the kind of person who wants to do this? And,
Mm-hmm.
and am I the kind of person who can do this?
Yeah. Mm,
I either wear all hats or I don't wear any hats, because I go, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a parent, I'm a this, I'm a that. And all of those are just labels that I use for some of the different things I do. And
mm-hmm.
in those different areas, I have, different skill sets and different values and different things that are important. So,
Mm-hmm.
it really depends on what the individual you're thinking of wants to accomplish.
Yeah. No, I think I think a lot of that's very helpful. And I think, coming to the fundamental, like who, that's kind of the be, do, have exercise, like the things like, what do I want to have? What do I want to do? And then who do I want to be? Sometimes we gloss over the who do I want to be, meaning if I
Oh,
like, who do I want to be or who do I need to be a person that left this job and has a job that they love? What does that version of me look like, and what do I currently have that's already that, and then what do I need to get to be that? And then it's a case of experimenting and trying and playing and all that stuff, right?
and the interesting thing is in ancient Eastern mysticism, if you want to call it that, or religion or philosophy or practice,
Yeah.
in yoga, they have what's called the chakras, the energy.
Uh-huh.
They say that the root chakra deals with survival. It's like almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, they kind of
Uh-huh.
root chakra, and then there's that. So the first chakra is kind of like the I am. That's where I am on the planet. And the next one is I feel. So
Mm-hmm.
it is I do. I mean, it's a gut. And then I love, the heart. I mean, there's such a wisdom in all of this. But
Yeah.
if you think about it, you go, I am the kind of person who's successful. I am successful. I feel successful. I do successful things. I do the activity of being successful. I do what I need to be successful. I love being successful.
Mm-hmm.
The things, if you did nothing more than kind of started repeating those kind of, or I'm happy, or I'm a loving person, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people want to be it without, let me try it this way. And people go, I want love.
Mm.
They look for someone to fulfill them instead of going, how can I be a loving example of somebody that another person would desire?
Yeah. Mm.
They're trying to fill a hole instead of saying, I want to be so loving and kind. It's the same thing in sales. A lot of people want to close the sale.
Mm-hmm.
We could go on for hours, but what I learned years ago, what I teach is the sale is nothing compared to the relationship you either develop or don't develop. And if
Mm.
you're thinking, I have to close this sale, and you rush to it, and you lose a relationship as a result, then you've lost more than just the sale. You
Mm.
lost the opportunity to have a repeat customer for life.
Yeah.
So what's more important, the sale or the relationship? If I can't sell you what I have, but I can refer you or add value to you or show you something that would benefit you in some way, and you go, wow. And you know where I learned this from? I learned it from a salesperson when
Mm.
I was trying to get a couch,
Hmm.
and she didn't have it, and we didn't buy. But she
Mm.
was staging. We ended up spending hours talking with this woman, and when it was all done, and we left and we didn't do it, anybody who needed furniture, I sent to her.
Yeah.
Just because she had cared so much about me and my wife that we went,
Mm-hmm.
let's give them a. So she got she didn't get my business,
Yeah.
but she got probably hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business because of the relationship that we had
Mm.
developed during the time that we spent together. And that's what people don't realize. There's,
Yeah.
what sometimes seems obvious is not so obvious, and which is Helen Keller, get another door, and find
Yeah.
it.
Mm.
Because you can do anything. You can be anything, do anything if you allow yourself to do that. If you go, I'm the kind of person who can do this. I am.
Yeah.
It again goes to the law of attraction. You don't attract what you want. You just get back wanting. But
Mm-hmm.
you attract who you are.
You are. Yeah.
And my rule of thumb has always been go first. Do you want to be happy? Be happy
Yeah.
and discover more happiness. But if you
Mm.
sit there and I want to be happy, I want to be happy, it's always seemed to be elusive. Like, I want to go to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. It's not the same as I'm on my way to
I'm
Chicago.
going. Yeah.
I'm traveling. I'm a traveler to Chicago.
Mm. Yeah. It's really wild. And it's also a very good reminder of how many of the, what is often called those limiting beliefs, meaning I'm not the kind of person who has a really good job. I'm not the kind of person who is a good writer. I'm not the kind of person who, whatever it is, has a good relationship with their spouse. Like, I'm not that kind of person. Well, then, yeah, you're not. Like, yeah, it's really interesting.
Well, and I address this in my book too. You can, you can say, okay, well, consider, some people go, write down all your limiting beliefs, and you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily encourage it, but I don't discourage it.
Yeah.
Your beliefs are going to come up all the time anyway. The limiting, you're going to say, well, I want to do this. And you go, well, I can't because of this, or I'm not that kind of person. Though, if you understand that, if you say, do you want to go to a movie? And I go, I can't afford it, or I don't have the time, or whatever reason you give after the invite, that's part of your belief or value system.
Yeah.
If you catch that then and go, well, wait a second. Oh, I would have said I can't afford it, but now I'm going to find a way to do it. You're already beginning to, in other words, it's kind of like if you're going to sift through dog crap in order to find gold, you're going to find a whole lot of dog crap too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and if you believe what you focus on expands, or what you focus on, you get more back of, why focus on the dog crap? So it's on the diamonds. And then as the dog crap comes up, you go, okay, cool. I acknowledge that. And then change it, shift it to something you can do instead of something you can't do. Your beliefs they always come out of your mouth. Every time we're talking, we're exuding our beliefs about whether something's possible or not possible, whether I can or can't, whether another person could or I can't,
Yeah.
Yeah. And our opinion.
I think I am all too familiar with the beliefs that often hold me back personally. So I appreciate even just hearing a lot of what you're saying here today to kind of help me move more and stop just sitting in the in the dog shit, so to speak. It's
Yeah.
like move and keep looking and keep exploring,
Again, the only reason why anyone would sit in the dog shit is they feel it's more comfortable than moving out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not the kind of person who goes, okay, jerkhead, move. I
Yeah.
mean, if they don't want to move, they don't want to move, but if I could say, would you like something to be a little bit different? Is there a way that we could explore it? And they go, yeah, I really do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What are you willing to do? Because if they're not willing to do anything, then you just end up, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if they're important to you, you do whatever you can to help them in whatever ways.
Yeah.
But as like when I got divorced and I wanted to raise my children, they were little. I took a backseat to public seminars and I stopped traveling all around the world so that I could work in corporations and spend more time consulting and not traveling,
Yeah.
so that I could be a full-time parent. And I'm very pleased to say, and not everybody can say this, and it doesn't one way or the other, I never missed an event of my kids. I was there for them. I had them 85, 90% of the time, even though we had a 50-50 custody arrangement. The way
Yeah.
the way my life was, my ex could do that. She had a job working for another company. I worked for myself, so I owned my time.
Yeah.
But I had structured my life that way.
Mm-hmm.
If I was making the same kind of money or not? No, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But the point was, I was good with that. That's what I wanted to do because it was important with me. Somebody else could go, well, you're an idiot. Another person could go, wow, you're such a saint. Who cares?
Yeah.
I did what I wanted to do, and I found a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And to work as well as it did. Does that mean there weren't issues? Well, of course there were, whatever.
Sure.
But dang, if I had, I don't have any regrets about it. I guess what I'm getting at. That's why I say it's just like when you make a decision, if you go, well, that's a bad decision. That's a judgment. That's a label. Why would you ever make a bad decision? No, I don't know. I just do.
Yeah.
All you did was make a decision based on what you knew. So instead of making yourself a bad puppy out of the thing, say, I made a decision. Now I'm gonna rectify it.
Right. Yeah. I love that approach. And I love, underneath the choice with your kids was also just being, very clear on what you wanted.
Right.
Right. Like, and sometimes we can struggle with that a little bit. So, but being really honest with ourselves and going, this is what I want in my life. I want to be around my kids. I want to raise my kids. I want to go to their events. Okay. Now how do I build my life so that can happen?
Right. And other people make other choices, and that's fine for them. I mean, I'm not saying that they should follow their example. I'm just saying that's what I wanted and was important to me.
Yeah.
And I found a way to make it work. And if we go back to the vernacular, were there sacrifice? Of course there were, but if I considered it a sacrifice, then it was, I'm giving up. But no, what I got in return was so above and beyond anything that would have been a sacrifice. You know what I mean? So I just, as much as possible, try to live without the pejorative, judgments and labels that screw us up. There's a Bible verse that I really like. It's like it says, "Be of the world, be in the world, but not of it." In other words, you have to live in the world, but you don't have to be party to all the stuff that's going on. You can have a choice. And so that it says, "Renew yourself by the transforming of your mind."
Yeah.
That's another scripture, right? And I mean, how much clearer can it get? You renew yourself through the transforming of your mind. And here's how I'll finish with that. There's a scripture that I love. It's, "This is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it." Doesn't say part of it.
Right.
It's all of it. So that means the good bits and the not so good bits. Rejoice in it. And if you learn that, life transforms. Because if you can celebrate everything, which is my tagline, if you can celebrate everything, then nothing's the problem. It's just another thing that you do on the journey of life. And then as you journey, you get to your destination or not. But journey's a wonderful one because you're celebrating and you're having fun and you're enjoying and you're learning and you're growing and you're opening new doors and things that you wouldn't otherwise consider possible.
Yeah. No, I love that perspective. I want to start asking a couple of questions as we start to maybe wind down the conversation. One that actually just kind of showed up for me. So Paul McFarlane is who connected me to you. And he was on the show probably about a year ago. And somewhere in between then and now, he mentioned that he had this belief of that imposter syndrome is not a real thing. And I said, I'm curious about that. And And he mentioned that you might have a perspective on that. Do you have a perspective on imposter syndrome, if it's a real thing or not? And how do we approach it if it's not a real thing?
Well, let me pose it in the form of a question. If you were collecting insects, or if you were a botanist, or you were a zoologist, you know that there's classifications and categories and, all these different distinctions. So you could go mammals, and then you could go apes, and you could go lions, you could go kitty cats, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Those are classifications and categories that don't exist,
Mm-hmm.
except for the human putting that label on it.
Yeah.
There's not probably an ape in the world who's going, I'm part of the ape category, I'm a mammal.
Yeah.
And that's a mammal too. They don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Before humans existed on the planet, there was earthquakes and lightning strikes and fires and deaths and floods and everything else. And there wasn't anybody going, this is a good or bad day.
Mm.
It was.
Mm.
It just is.
Yeah.
Well, imposter syndrome is the idea that you are doing something that you don't feel maybe qualified to do. You somehow feel, can you feel that? Yeah, of course you could.
Mm-hmm.
But does it really exist? You are capable of doing what you're capable of doing. Now, if you're saying I'm capable of more, but not able to do the more, then is it imposter syndrome, or are you telling people something that you can do that you actually can't do?
Mm.
So the key to solving imposter syndrome is learning how to do what you say you can do.
Mm.
Now, that said, somebody can say, I'm an actor. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a very good actor. So I feel like an imposter whenever I get a job. That means you need to work on your identity, who you are. In other words, is it a real thing? I don't think it exists in the, like there's a category of imposter syndrome, but people can get stuck at any level of behavior or thinking or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't feel like what they represent, then what would be the solution?
Well, it seems like you either have to improve your ability to do the thing you say you do, or adjust what you say you do.
So yes, and that's a great answer. So think about this. If I said, okay, TJ, we're going to go, see that rope up there is 40 feet in the air. Have you ever walked a tightrope before?
I have not.
All right, well, we're going to go up 40 feet and you're going to walk across that tightrope.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like a imposter and a fraud, or you couldn't do it, you would be smart. You would be wise.
Right.
Because you can't do it.
Yeah.
You've never done it. Why would you expect to be? I can't do it. You can.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend in Santa Monica. She had a tightrope on the beach. That her dad built. It was on the ground, and then there was another one next to it, about 6 inches off the ground. How you learn to walk a tightrope is to walk along, because a tightrope is a big rope. It's not a like what you tie your dog up with. I mean, it's like right. So you learn to walk on the tightrope on the ground, and then you learn to walk a couple inches off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn to raise it, and you keep raising it until you get 3 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, whatever. And then after a while, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you need in order to walk a tightrope? Well, you should be able to go, I could learn to do this. You should have the confidence that you can learn to walk a tightrope, but you shouldn't go, I can walk a 40-foot tightrope without ever doing it. That's stupid. That's not confident. That's being an idiot. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you develop the confidence? You develop the competence.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk on the ground, you go, oh, I can walk a tightrope on the ground. Okay, cool. So now you're confident you can do that. Now let's go a couple. And you go up and you fall off until you develop the confidence and the competence and the competence and the confidence to walk the tightrope 3 inches off, then a foot off. So competence and confidence kind of go hand in hand. You want the confidence that you can learn to do something, not the confidence that you've already done it if you've never done it.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about living from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, it means assume that you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am, a successful tightrope walker, but you don't go do that or tell people that until you actually are. That's the target you're telling your brain.
Right.
I can do this. Right. So if you're out in the world and you don't feel comfortable. And I've faced the same things. I mean, I go out and go, well, I hope they like me. I hope, I do a good job. And there have been times I've done good jobs and times I haven't done the job that I wanted. Through it all, it's trying to be authentic to where you're at.
Yeah.
And so if you can do that and understand, you're a work in process, you're a work in progress. you're not meant to be. A friend of mine once said, the only perfect flower on the planet is a plastic flower. Because it can change. A
Yeah.
real flower dies. A real flower the petals can fall off. It's perfect if it's unchangeable. But you're not plastic. You're a human, vital, living thing. So you have the opportunity and the possibility to change and to grow. So if today you feel like a fraud,
Yeah.
then what do you need to do to not feel like a fraud? And I don't want to be a fraud isn't the right way to do it. You go, what is it going to feel, and how do I get there?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that distinction on the confidence. Like, I'm confident that I will be able to do the thing as I continue to practice and learn and grow, as opposed to thinking we have to step into this sort of false bravado of I can walk that tightrope, and that we have to share that with the world. It's like, if I bring it back to the world of work that I came from, you're a copywriter or an art director in advertising or something. Like, you're a copywriter as soon as you're hired. You're a copywriter, and you're as good as you are. If you want to be a great copywriter, then you have to continue to do the things, but you don't have to. But you don't have to proclaim to the world that you're currently a great copywriter. You're a good copywriter. You're a work in progress, to your point, and you're excited to learn the things you need to learn so that you can become that great copywriter if that's what you want. Yeah. It's again very simple, but not necessarily. It's simple, but not always easy to kind of get those mindset shifts happening.
Right. Yeah. It's easier done than thought.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. I love that. Yeah.
Because people say, "Well, it's easier done than said, or said than done." Than no, it's easier done than if you talk yourself out of it or think yourself out of it. So just do it, try it, and you can find that you'll be successful. And it's kind of like the first time you do something, don't expect to do well, but don't expect to be the best.
Yeah.
I was a horrible learner in parts of my life where somebody said, "Well, do this," and I go, "Oh, this is too hard. This is too." I'm not focused on getting the skill. I'm focused on what I can't do and how my ego is involved, or what people think about. That's not the way to develop skill. You got to kind of throw that stuff out and go, "Well, how do you do that?" Well, how do you drop a pencil, for crying out loud? Some things you just have to.
Right.
You just have to kind of let go of. You have to allow and go, all right, I may not be the best. You have to put them through like they're a kid. You may not be the best. You may not hit everything right. But guess what? If you stick with it for a long, and that's okay. It's okay to do that. The interesting thing about it is this, and since we mentioned marketing, some of the problems that we have today are marketing problems, not because of the marketing, but because people will say things like, "Are you having trouble manifesting? You're not getting what you want?" Well, guess what? You're always manifesting something. It's not whether you manifest or don't manifest. That's like saying, "Are you having trouble breathing or not breathing?" I mean, you're breathing. It may be labored, which, but you're breathing or you're not breathing. I mean, you're alive or you're not alive. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So they go, you're always manifesting. Your brain is always working as long as it's working, so you're always manifesting something. The question becomes are you manifesting what you intend to manifest, or are you manifesting the stuff that you don't intend to manifest? And can you know the difference in what you're doing that brings you one result versus the other?
Yeah.
If you go down the street, you turn left and you end up in a dead end, at some point, you go, next time I make a right turn and see where that takes me.
Yeah.
But so you're always manifesting. So the question isn't, are you or aren't you? Question is, we put you in give the mindset that you start creating what you want to create instead of creating the unintentional stuff. As Hill say, if you're drifting like a cork in the road, you're not deliberately taking charge. Cork in the water, you're not deliberately taking charge. You're drifting, so you're succumbing to whatever the influences are around you instead of being active. That's why it creates the life you want. Live life Richards doesn't mean that you're you don't I tell people I am the owner of this planet. And they go, "Well, that's pretty," because I always go, I own LA, it's my town. And they go, "Well, that's pretty egotistic." I go, "Well, it doesn't mean I don't have other co-owners." I'm not walking through people's backyards and keeping people from it. I share it with everybody else, but I got the attitude of, I own this town. This is my town, because when I was just a visitor there, it didn't feel very welcoming. But when I own the town, I get through the traffic where everybody else is complaining, because I don't care if I'm stuck in traffic. And if I'm stuck in traffic at the beach, well, hell, I mean, God, let us stay at
There
the
are
beach
worse
a little
things.
longer.
Yeah. No, that's another good mindset shift. And I think just that simple step of, being what I hear in that, like you owning LA is more like the same thing as somebody who decides I want to stay in this career and now I want to make it better. I want to make it, a career that works for me and maybe even for others. And I mean, you're seeing the toxic workplace and you're going, what can I do to impact it? It's my workplace. Like, so what can I do?
I love this. Yes, because when I go, I own the planet. That means I'm responsible for the entire planet and all the 8 billion people in it, whether I actually am or not. It's a
Mm-hmm.
set of, do I pick up that piece of paper or do I let it sit there?
Yeah.
Do I care enough to do the things to help make changes that benefit all the people on the planet, or am I
Mm-hmm.
just benefit myself or
Yeah.
just my interest group? And so
Mm-hmm.
right there, if you're in an environment, how can I help improve it? How can I add value without me being a intrusive?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, in other words, there's certain status quo and everything else. I don't want to splinter it. Or I mean, maybe there are situations where that is what's going to happen, or that's, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not trying to make judgments here. I'm just saying
Yeah.
the goal is in this well-formed outcomes. The question is, was this change ecological? Not like the ecology of the planet, but the idea is it going to affect anybody else or anything else? So we know that this notion of if the butterfly flaps its wings to South America, there's avalanches in
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you introduce a change in a system, can you think forward enough about what are the possible permutations that are going to occur that
Mm-hmm.
might upset an apple cart?
Yeah.
And are they acceptable or not acceptable? If you go, well, this collateral damage, that's probably not acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, in terms of life
Mm-hmm.
or fear or money or whatever affecting other people. But if you go, we can introduce this change in a way that helps everybody gradually, accommodate it. Any change you ever make is going to upset stuff. I mean,
Sure.
that's the nature of change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
something's going to be different. So the question becomes is can you make it beneficial for everybody as opposed to just some people?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
enough people think that way today. I mean, I think what we're seeing in the world today is a lot of noise and a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of that, and then there are people preying on that, going, "Well, everything's going to happen." And you're not okay. I think that it's a good thing that it means that we're waking up to
Mm.
issues that have not been addressed before, and they're being addressed in ways that you or I may or may not like or
Yeah.
appreciate. But if we ignore them, it's kind of like the insects are under the rock, they
Mm-hmm.
don't care whether we know it or not. But if we pick
Yeah.
up there are insects, now we have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Want them
Yeah.
there or not want them there. And if we remove them, what are the consequences? And if
Mm.
we keep them, what are the consequences? In other words, I mean, we've done this with nature. We introduce a species into another species in order to take care of the species that's overgrown, and then suddenly we have a different problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so, but if, so that's the cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Beware of the things that you're doing in environments with people, and try and make sure that everybody's interests are in your heart and you do the best you can with what you have. And if you make a mistake, be willing to correct it. Don't
Mm-hmm.
just dismiss them and go, oh, they're just nobody's anyway. Why would I
Yeah.
care?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm hoping what we see in the planet is while it doesn't always appear that way, that people become more sensitive, more caring, more understanding in ways that work for people instead of, not work for people.
Yeah. No, I think that feels like what it feels like. It feels like there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of rocks being turned, and we're looking and we're deciding, and sometimes we're making the wrong decision or decision that's very disruptive. And then, like you said, hopefully we're learning, but is that learning happening in days and weeks or years and eons? Who knows? But we're in the middle of it, and yeah, you can just show up how you show up and make the choices how you show up, and impact what you can impact ultimately.
Well, right. And what I've done this like, 50 years. It's like, how do I help people get the changes that they want without disrupting their lives? And for the most part, if you're careful, and I don't mean trepidate, oh my
Yeah.
God. But if
Yeah.
you're careful and thoughtful, it's kind of like what good coaches on athletic teams do. Our goal is to move this ball down the field so someone can score so that our
Hmm.
team wins,
Yeah.
and not massacring the other team. We're not trying to take them out and break their bones and hurt them,
Hmm.
right? But they're going to try and prevent us. So what do we need to do to get the ball down the field? And when they try to prevent us, what kind of contingency plans do we have where we can run around or throw the ball or kick the ball or whatever we have to do in order to get past their defense so
Hmm.
that we can still score
Yeah.
and get an outcome? And even though they're not going to win the game, we're better off by having played it because the structure is, a winner game.
Yeah.
But the idea being that everybody wins because they've had a good time, as opposed
Mhm.
to, oh God, by the way, we left the bodies while we,
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I want to come back to the idea of play a little bit because you talked about play, and the next guest on this show is a woman named Megan Bryan, and she is running play workshops for adults. And you talked a little bit about how we lose that sense, that we had as kids, and that you do a lot of that work with folks. So I'm curious if you have a question that I can pass along to her when I talk to her next week.
Oh, I think, why play? I mean, in other words, why is it important that adults play?
Mm.
I used to, my nephew was little. This was, 30 years ago or whatever. He watched, I think, Lion King, like 100 times, just day in, day out. And every time he got to the end, he was just as thrilled, and he knew it was going to end, but he
Yeah.
was just intrigued. The ability of a child to go be captured and to be fulfilled in through play is just so incredible. So congratulations to her. Why, what is it important? What does it do? How does it release, you know,
Mm.
creativity in the worker or the adult or the late teen or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Uh, because it really, it is a vital thing.
Mm.
And when we understand that the times are changing, is so much of our stuff is gone from moving from an agrarian society to a industrial society where you had to be a worker bee, you had to show up. There were no unions at the time, so there was people getting carnage and no
Yeah.
rules and everything. And so some safeguards have been put in place, but we still have this mentality of work hard, be a worker bee, know your place, don't step out of line. There are deadlines that are important, which reasonably I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But but how can all of that be met and actually be better because someone starts to play?
Yeah.
What how does that unlock all the stuff that's been trapped inside the other way
Mm.
and free the people, free the corporation, free whatever it is to
Yeah.
be better than they would have been otherwise? Because it does, really does.
Yeah, no, I will ask that, and I'm excited to hear the answer. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you touched on some of it here, but it'll be fun to get her perspective as well, and kind of carrying on that general theme of making things better. I know we've talked a lot about some of this, but if you could wave a magic wand and make the world of work fully desuckified, what does that look like to you?
Wow, that's such a great question, and I'm sure I could answer it 100 different ways after I answer it. Um, the world of work, it would be collaboration and cooperation more than anything else. It would be that people understand that the resource that we truly have available to us is other people, not
Hmm.
just people we agree with. I hate the term like-minded people. Hi, come together with like-minded people. No, I want the people who will challenge me, who will provoke me, who think outside the box, who live different than me. I love ethnic food because I don't want to just eat the same stuff. I love trying different things. So
Hmm.
I want to be exposed to environments and mindsets that encourage people to be diversive in
Hmm.
not only the skin and race and all that, which is truly important, but in
Right.
terms of their creativity, their ability to problem solve, their ability to work together, their ability to collaborate, to build something that's bigger for all of us and
Mm.
not for a small segment of the people.
Mm.
Uh, instead of dividing the pies, let's make more pies.
Yes, I like the sound of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we can't, we have this mindset that competition means, and you hear it, crush this, crush that, do this, do that. Um, and maybe the gladiators, I mean, that was important to them because one was going to live and one was not.
Right.
Day and age, this is business, this is money. Don't make it survival of, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Make it, you learn the game faster if you like the game,
Hmm.
and a lot.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, all these people don't they I'm assuming they didn't play basketball because they had to.
Right.
Others were compelled to because they really enjoyed it. But
Hmm.
because they enjoyed it so much, they got really good. And then
Yeah.
they also, in most cases, understand the value of teamwork. That,
Hmm.
that the team wins,
Yeah.
whoever the final scorer is or isn't.
Hmm.
So it's that the best thing I could say is, these people that row across the water, competitive rowing,
Hmm.
what are they doing? They're facing the same direction. Their oars are in the water or out of the water at the same time,
Hmm.
working together to get from one point to another point. And if you can do that,
Yeah. Mm.
winning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because what I notice, certainly in the world I come from it with advertising, is that many of the incentives are individual based, meaning I created that ad campaign that won all those awards, and it's mine, and I'm therefore judged on it, and I'm promoted based off it, or get the next great job based off of it. Even though none of those projects happened with just one person. And everything requires at least a few people working together. Sometimes it's 20 people, sometimes it's five, sometimes it's 100. Um, and yet none of the sort of markers that we've put in place from a career development standpoint go, how well did you work as a team? It's show me the thing you did. And so there's this tension, the collaboration and the cooperation. It almost becomes adversarial because I need to make sure I get what I have to move to the next place, as opposed to we're all trying to get something great here, and we all get to celebrate in that. And somehow the system has aligned in a way that recognizes each person's role in that, but it's not superseding the fact that it had to happen in the context of a team. And I don't know
Right.
the answer to that, but it's something I've noticed.
Well, no, I mean, that's beautiful. It really is. Go ahead. Tell me how much toilet paper you make on your own. I mean, do you cut down trees? Do you process the wood? Do I mean, just to buy it from a store, it takes lots of people, lots of money to
Yeah.
be able to do it. And when we're out of it, we're all complaining. You know,
Hmm.
it's Obama said it years ago and criticized. You didn't do this on your own. It takes a lot of people, and people are like,
Right.
"Whoa, you did that." But or Hillary Clinton. I'm not trying to be political here, but it takes a
Yeah.
village. It
Right.
does take a village. It does take lots of people. You know, we so much of our business model in the industrial age was built off of survival of the fittest.
Hmm.
Even that model of evolution has been superseded by the idea that we evolved through collaboration. There may be
Hmm.
some fitness issues there, but we
Sure.
adapted. So the
Hmm.
more we're able to adapt and to work with other people, it's that old saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go farther, go with other people. Is that
Hmm.
it right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
It might be the other way around. But the point being is because somebody can carry you, you carry them.
Yeah.
But there's just we are one species on a rock hurtling around the sun at 60,000 miles an hour. We ought to figure out how to work together as a
Yeah.
people, as a species.
Yeah.
And and to your point, here's an interesting. I make movies, and people go and they the Academy Awards, the Golden Globes, or the Emmys, or whatever.
Hmm.
It's something that goes, I did this, and screw you all. I'm just the best actor. Nobody really likes that. They go, well, that's hubris, and it may or may not be the case. But a movie is a collaboration of hundreds of people.
Hmm.
Even if it's three people working in their backyard on an iPhone, it's a collaboration, or one person. They didn't get the iPhone without somebody else making the iPhone. So even
Right.
if they're solo shooting all by themselves, doing all their editing, everything else, the technology that they used came from somewhere else, and how
Hmm.
it got to them was either through a store or mail delivery or something. So it took all these other people to get that to them.
Yeah.
And yet most people who get this, they go, I want to thank this person, that person, the person here, all the cast, all the crew. Why? Because it's a collaborative thing. It takes hundreds of people to do a movie. Then it takes hundreds of people to market a movie. It takes hundreds of people to distribute a movie. It takes hundreds of people to see the movie to make it successful or not. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not just a one-off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic that I think we're often just trying to figure out. Meaning, I think in some ways, Hollywood has actually found an interesting way of blending the celebration of any one individual's skill while creating a culture that says, be sure to thank everybody because it is a team effort. And I haven't worked on movies, but I've worked on TV commercial sets, and it's a similar vibe where it's like, yeah, you can respect the heck out of the director's performance or that actor's performance, but there's always a sense that, of course, this couldn't happen without all of this, and then how do we ensure that all of us are getting a chance to elevate ourselves and grow and develop and be recognized and have the development they need. It's not an easy thing to do. I don't know that they're doing it perfectly in that space, but I think a lot of the corporate space still has some of that survival of the fittest, celebrate the one hero versus the recognition of the team. And I think we got to just keep trying to work on that.
No, I think that's an accurate statement. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with any of it. It's kind of like, people, when your shoe wears out, you throw it away. I mean, and until it's worn out, you use it. Sometimes you patch it, you do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with our mental models and our models for business or whatever else. Until somehow we find a better way to serve ourselves, we will use the old server. But when I talk about movie making, I liken it to going on a camping trip. I go, if you had to go or making a commercial, if you had to go on location, somebody on a commercial, and you had to be around these people for X amount of days working, liken it to a camping trip. Who would you take on a camping trip? Do you want the curmudgeon who sits there and whines and wails and complains and is snotty and the whole thing, or the person who is helpful and kind and considerate and a team player, somebody who likes to be there, somebody who's uplifting, somebody who's got great story, somebody who does their work. I mean, in other words, if you're going on a camping trip, who do you want to be around? Well, if you thought, what kind of business environment do I want to create for the people where we get things done, but we get them done in this kind of fashion, then I go make it a camping trip. I mean, make it something that everybody can enjoy.
Yeah.
Be happy with the product that they turn out, as opposed to hating the entire process. Because you need to celebrate each other a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And understand that it can get easier and easier and easier as more and more people do it. And it's easier done than thought, because if we think it's going to be hard, it'll be hard.
Yeah.
Harder than if we go, you know what, why don't we attempt to do this? And if I walk in tomorrow and I go over to the table and I throw everything off the table and go, okay, here's how it's going to be, that might be a little abrupt. But if I go, how about tomorrow we start using different cutlery, and we get to introduce things where people go, oh, I like that. How about these? Do you like this? You can introduce change in increments. It doesn't have to be. Most change is incremental.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Flowers don't pop out of the ground overnight. You don't have Arnold Schwarzenegger's physique overnight. Yes, it's on TV and your computer's pretty fast and the microwave gets your food done. But most people are really happy with microwave food. So I mean, it just takes some time, and we're changing. We're evolving, and where we are tomorrow depends on what our mindset is today. And if we think it's possible, we can accomplish it. If we don't think it's possible, we won't.
Yeah.
Likely until we begin to think that it's doable.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'm going to probably write down the easier done than thought line and have that in front of me, because I love that.
And I have a meme somewhere, that I created. It might even be in my blog today. It might be the one.
Okay.
It says easier done than thought. That might be what's top of my head, but it's actually very true. So you're welcome to borrow that.
I will. Absolutely. Speaking of having fun and being playful, one of the things I've tried to do with this show is make the intro and outro kind of fun and playful with some sound effects. You'll hear cat sounds and other sounds. And I always ask the guest if you've got a sound that you're up for making that can be included in that process. I would love to hear it. Do you have anything, Rex, that you can make for us?
I can make for you. Oh wow, that opens it up to all sorts of possibilities. And I hope no one's done this one, but I'll do it anyway. And if they have, then I join the many who have done it before me, and they'll go like the sound of a crowd roaring.
Ah, yeah.
I don't know if it came off that way, but because you know what, you should fill your head with applause. With people cheering you on, with yourself cheering you on. You should have positive optimism. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think to your point, we should celebrate each other more often, celebrate ourselves more often, just celebrate more often. I think that's a good philosophy. I want to give people a chance to find you, Rex. So I know we've got your book there, Life on Your Terms, Creating the Life You Want. But I'd love to know, like, where else can people find you and learn more about all the awesome stuff you're doing?
Well, if they know how to spell my name, Rex Sikes, is Rexsikes, and normally on my thing, my name comes up, but it's not there now. I guess I didn't think about it. But so it's rexsikes.com, my name with the .com. They can Google me. They'll come up all over the place.
Okay.
I do shows on the internet. I've got Create Your Best Life with Rex, and I have a daily blog. And so they can find me 100 different ways, if not
awesome.
more.
Very cool.
But I appreciate this opportunity to talk and to be with you and to explore these ideas, because you know what, as they say, one idea can change the world. It just means you apply the idea and you start putting it to work.
Yeah.
If you do nothing with it, nothing changes. But if you apply it,
you
do it, then you have no idea how far you can go with it. So take it beyond the limit.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And on that note, I think we can wrap things up. Rex, thank you so much. This was a delightful conversation. And I know personally I'm feeling pretty excited and inspired to go run some experiments and try some things in my own life. So that feels like a pretty good outcome.
Experiment away and realize, like the Wright brothers, you'll discover it after you discover it that your efforts pay off. So just keep experimenting and having fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Rex. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork Podcast. And a huge thanks to Rex for bringing a masterful understanding of the human condition to the show. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, rate, review, subscribe, or consider buying a bar and creating a drink called the DesuckifyWork, made with whiskey, RC Cola, and a splash of pureed Skittles. Garnished with a Thin Mint cookie if you're feeling frisky. You can follow Rex on LinkedIn and check out his site at rexsikes.com. Also, be sure to grab a copy of his new book, Life on Your Terms, Create the Life You Want. While you're in the grabbing mood, grab your phone or laptop and check out my site and my Substack newsletter. I'm on a mission to make work suck less, and I would love for you to join me. Want to make that desuckification happen ASAP? Let's set up a free half-hour coaching session. Bye, everyone.